And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Maybe you're listening to the top of the hour news and you have Democratic presidential candidate, perhaps nominee Kamala Harris of California, senator saying
the FBI needs to do a background check on this particular issue.
Wow. So if you're a liberal, you agree with it. If you're a conservative, if you're a man, you're a second tier, a lower tiered individual. Welcome to America 2018. If you have a daughter, if you have a son, if you have a nephew, well, you're out of luck, right? Who would have ever thought that we would be dealing with that? Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Here's the good guys.
It's a serious allegation. Everybody needs to be heard, but also people need to defend themselves.
Well, she doesn't want to be heard. And who's to say that this woman is not just some type of elaborate hoax, some type of delay and stalling tactic that the Democrats dreamed up to derail Kavanaugh? She can't stand up to questioning. She's a Democrat. She's a lib. She's a progressive. She came up with this story, concocted it 36 years ago, and now she doesn't have enough guts to look her alleged abuser in the eyes. Isn't that what we have in America, a right to face your accuser? So Brett Kavanaugh will appear Monday. He says he's ready to go. Christine Blasey Ford, they say they're not going to. Well, does that mean that we shouldn't vote on this? Look, anybody can make up anything at all. And if you have enough guts to come out, then come out and lay it down, right?
Every one of them speaks for millions of women and men who stand united in opposition to Kavanaugh's attacks on Blasey Ford and on women, and who stand united in defense of democracy and against Kavanaugh and Trump's attacks on democracy in this nation. Right. Trump was elected president, and it's a republic, not a democracy, ma'am. And let's face it, as Tucker Carlson has said, as Sean Hannity has said, as Kevin Miller has said, this is about abortion. This is about, and you have the plaintiff, Roe v. Wade, said, look, she was fast and loose with the facts, wishes that she never was a pawn for the pro-abortion industry. And we could see in this court it going back to the states. Whether that's true or not, that's what the opponents against Judge Kavanaugh, who has two daughters, by the way, who's been married for many, many years, who actually donates time at the food pantry at his Catholic parish. Right, he's anti-woman. Imagine if Judge Kavanaugh had said this about women the way Senator Mazie Hirono of Hawaii has said this about men.
I expect the men in this country and the men in this committee, and many of them, believe me, because we all signed on to this letter to demand an FBI investigation, but really, guess who's perpetuating all of these kinds of actions? It's the men in this country, and I just want to say to the men in this country, just shut up and step up.
Men, are you ready to step up? Don't shut up. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Hank in Boise. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Just for a short aside before the main point, with a name like Maisie, I was thinking of those old Ann Sothern movies, where she played the role of Maisie, the Adventures of Maisie during the 1940s. A name like that is, it kind of brings back the memories of the 1940s, like you see in classic Turner movies. But getting to our main point, she gave away the game, or Miss Ford gave away the game when she said she wanted an FBI investigation. It's obvious that they wanted to delay this until after the congressional elections when the Democrats would assume control. What this portends is that any conservative nomination by Trump, if the Democrats take over control of the Senate, will be dead on arrival automatically. And the only way that he would be able to even get a judge confirmed, that he'd have to go through what Bush did with Souter earlier on when he went to Warren Rudman, when Rudman said to the Democrats that, Souter was my assistant when I was Attorney General of New Hampshire, and I know this man. He will not vote against Roe versus Wade, and they've given that assurance when he went around the Senate when the confirmation hearings for Souter back in 1990 to replace liberal Judge Good. And that would be probably what they would have to do. They would have to appoint somebody who would be assured to vote with the Democrat line, at least on the social issues, to even have a chance of things. So this is what the implications of all this is, that the Democrats are signaling they will not tolerate another conservative on the court. And that's what the real significance of all this is about.
You're correct, Hank. What do you make of this woman who comes up with this allegation, doesn't want to testify, makes these allegations, comes forward, then all of a sudden Kavanaugh goes, okay, let's go. And she's not ready to stand up for her statements.
Well, I think you have to look at her background. She's a Democrat Party activist in California. She's a liberal professor. She felt bound to try to delay or do anything that she could do to delay this nomination. I think that I wouldn't be surprised that the way that Feinstein handled it was with her tacit agreement that basically Feinstein's people or staff talked to her before when she advanced this thing, and I think that they probably came to some sort of agreement as to tactics. I think that this is done tactical ways to stop it. I don't think that anything about this is sincere. But who knows? I'm just basically theorizing, but from what I see of the evidence, and then I think that I wouldn't be surprised that's exactly what happened. She's not interested in testimony. She's interested in delay. She doesn't care about going up before the thing. If they can have a way of postponing this until the Democrats take over control of the Senate, that's all she wants.
Hank, thank you for the call. I appreciate you. Sorry, I was a little quick on the trigger. 580-5436-580-KIDO. Coming up.
The new Idaho law requires healthcare providers to report to the state about patients who had abortions with complications. Complications could range from someone's emotional condition to missing an appointment. The information providers have to give includes the age and race of a patient, as well as the number of previous abortions. Lawyers for the American Civil Liberties Union argue the law is too vague. They're asking a U.S. judge to issue a preliminary injunction to stop it. Government attorneys have said abortion reporting has long been upheld as constitutional. Jill Nadeau, Fox News.
There we have it at 580-5436-580-KIDO. More on that in a minute. We go to anti-government Ryan on KIDO Talk Radio. Now, let me warn you, anti-government Ryan, we are talking about Judge Kavanaugh, so before you get to your other point, you've got to talk about the topic at hand. I know you have something else, but I'd be a hypocrite if I let you run wild after Liberal Steve got the boot. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Miller. Good morning, Americans. The whole judge situation, here's how I see it. It's never like the soccer mom from North Dakota that's like really active in her church that ever makes the allegation. It's always some like real like liberal activist person, you know. And I mean, 35 years ago, I mean, heck, Mr. Miller, I'm a young guy, and 2 years ago I could misremember facts, let alone 35 years. It's totally possible some guy maybe did something inappropriate to this woman and she is misidentified him at the time, or, I mean, apparently there was drinking going on, so obviously we all know when you're young and you drink, you do unfavorable things and misremember things. So, I mean, it's quite amazing that now in America we've reached the point where you can just say whatever you want and it's automatic guilt immediately. Remove him from his job, kick him out. You know, it's just amazing where we're at in this year. Mind-blowing. Anyway, was that good enough, Mr. Miller? Can we move on to a much larger, bigger topic?
Well, you seem very passionate about it. Go ahead.
Well, so last night, Mr. Miller, this is the reason I wanted to call in is because what I'm going to tell you right now is not going to make some big Idaho Statesman investigation or KTVB, investigative reporting. So last night I sat at the Meridian City Council meeting for 5.5 hours, okay? Started at 6. I left at 11:30. It probably babbled on a little bit after that, but the main point of why I was there was done. at that point in time. And this is in South Meridian, inside city limits. There's a place called Timber Creek Recycling, okay? They submitted an application to the city, and this is very important for residents, especially people that live in Meridian. So this Timber Creek Recycling, they submitted an application for a massive expansion of their operations out there, including composting of food waste and lawn clippings and things that's not something that they're currently doing, but it's expansion in a new type of service. Anyway, so this area in question is Locust Grove and Columbia Road, which is inside city limits. Like I said, it's zoned for residential. Okay, it's low density residential, but residential nonetheless. And this is an obvious expansion on an industrial type use, industrial type nature. And the city council approved it last night 4-2. Okay, 4-2. And so they approved the massive expansion inside city limits. Where I grew up, all the dumps, landfills, composting things were way out of town. Not near people. There was one map last night that showed in a 1 mile radius of this facility, there's 65 homes, as well as we know the explosion of growth.
Now you're going to have to get to your point here.
Well, the main point is, so now for all Meridian residents, zoning laws mean nothing by our city council. Okay, it means nothing because they just went as a direct violation of not only the mayor's recommendation as well as there's like a land use committee. Okay, so I just think it's very important for all people of Meridian to know that you have you're going to have a big dump in your backyard now if you live on the south side, and zoning laws mean nothing anymore. And they're spending millions of dollars
there's going to be a big dump in Meridian.
Correct. Yeah, and it's going to be right next to people's houses, and it's right next to the regional park. It's less than a mile from the new regional park that Tammy Dewar last night said they're spending over millions of dollars on, she said. And, I just think it's important for people to know this is why I'm anti-government, is because politicians do just moronic things. I was flabbergasted they approved this last night because it's so obvious that it's a direct violation of zoning laws. Zoning laws mean nothing.
They never say no to growth in Meridian.
Well, it's just, I'm absolutely appalled, and it's disgusting. All these people should be voted out, and that's why I'm anti-incumbent, I'm anti-government, and this is just yet another example, even at a local level, that affects everybody. It's just completely inappropriate to have a expansion of a massive dump into new industries right in city limits. It's idiotic. It's stupid. Anyway, God bless you, Mr. Miller. I just wanted to get that information out there.
God bless you, anti-government Ryan. You take care.
Take it easy.
All right. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
I could do this all day. Hi, Bert.
Hi, Ernie. Ernie, what are you
doing? Exercises, Bert.
Oh, you're doing exercises.
Why don't you join us?
No, thank you. No. I'm waiting for my favorite radio program, Pigeons in the News.
Well, Bert, why don't you do this exercise until it starts?
No, thanks. I think I'll just watch you.
And ready, stop.
And good morning, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We'll get to this topic in a minute. And because we love our children, we love the issues of the day, we don't go away from anything else. And we talk about social issues. We embrace social conservatism. We proudly say that we're social conservatives, proudly talk about faith, and we proudly hold ourselves accountable. So we have two breaking stories here on the sidebar. We have Liberal Steve contemplating resigning his commission from the program because, well, we just said it was time for him to go. He didn't stick to the topic. He wasn't even on point. That was number one. And then we have Allie, who has been with the program from the very beginning. Kevin, you and Ray really disappoint me in the way the programs are going. That man from Mountain Home and his language is totally out of line. I don't think she's talking about Pete from Mountain Home. I believe she's talking about Doug from Mountain Home. Just because the television programs are allowing inappropriate language does not mean all audiences want to hear it. Liberal Steve isn't bad at all compared to Mountain Home Nasty Mouth. And you call yourself a Christian man. I have listened to your program from the beginning, and because of the Mountain Home Mouth, I am about done. Allie. Well, that's not a good sign for the future of the program. We've lost Liberal Steve and now Allie. But your comments are always appreciated. That's why we love it. I hate when we're in a conversation, all of a sudden somebody cuts us off, right? That's why I love to just listen sometimes. It's a different approach to talk radio. You talk and I listen. If you're talking about it, well, then I'm talking about it. We're talking about it. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number's 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You know, yesterday we brought the story that Sesame Street, a unknown writer for Sesame Street, said that it is true that Bert and Ernie are gay.
One.
I could do this all day.
One.
Hi, Bert.
Hi, Ernie.
Two.
Ernie,
One.
Ernie,
Two.
Ernie, what are you
One.
Doing exercises, Bert.
Oh, you're doing exercise.
Why don't you join us?
And coming up, we'll get your reaction to this at 580-5436. 580-KIDO, KIDO Talk Radio, your proud home for Fox News Radio in the Treasure Valley on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. From your house to, well, the great rotunda, Capitol Hill. Rachel Sutherland joins us now. Rachel, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
The drama that never ends, this time involving Brett Kavanaugh and his accuser. And, you know, we've got one senator saying men should just step aside and shut up. Boy, this sounds more like pro wrestling than Congress, or does it?
Oh, well, Congress can sometimes be a little bit like a smackdown. I mean, that's not anything new, and it's becoming more and more common, especially with the high stakes of this. This is the U.S. Supreme Court. This is a sexual assault allegation. We haven't seen anything quite like it. People talk about Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas, but I would wager that it's higher stakes and more serious than that. And now we're understanding that that Christine Blasey Ford doesn't want to come forward on Monday without an FBI investigation. My understanding is that would need to be ordered from the White House because this would generally be handled on a local level. A local state's attorney would decide whether to prosecute. This would be Montgomery County, Maryland, and my understanding is that those allegations are old and therefore the statute of limitations has expired. So as far as I know, they're not going to do anything, and it would be the White House that would order it. And it looks like right now the president just boarded Marine One bound for North Carolina, and he's saying that the FBI just really doesn't do that sort of thing. And he says that if Christine Blasey Ford doesn't show up, that it would be unfortunate. So, you know, he's saying that if she had a credible showing, it would be very interesting. He has said that she needs to come on out and tell her side, but her attorney, Kevin, has said that she's getting death threats and has had to flee her home.
It is troubling, and on one hand, you have these allegations, and to Judge Kavanaugh's credit, he said, okay, I'll show up, but we haven't heard that from her, and then you have the senators, maybe, I don't know, you know, you cover these folks all the time, Rachel, it's how these are my words, how strident or militant they were, and they really haven't heard from her anyway. They're, you know, telling men to shut up, and I believe her, and we need an FBI investigation. And, you know, we've had allegations we've had allegations against powerful men before, and some of these same folks looked at the accusers not so openly as they do this young lady.
I think that the Me Too movement that started about a year ago now really has had an impact because I think that without it, perhaps this would be even a more difficult situation for Ford, and that people would dismiss it a lot more quickly. You even have counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, coming out and saying that she should be heard, that she should be respected. And so having the White House say that, that was pretty striking. And even though this is their nominee, yet at the same time, they're trying to be fair to Judge Kavanaugh as well. So that's really tough. And then the men on this panel, right now, you know, they're Republicans are saying Democrats are trying to stall the process. Democrats are saying no, it's the other way around. But I do think that these lawmakers on the panel who are all, you know, going to be voting, you know, on this need to understand that the optics may not be good of saying either show up on Monday or we're going to move forward. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to call. But if he makes it out of committee, and he probably will if she doesn't show up, it's hard to say what's going to happen in the full Senate. I mean, some of the fence sitters will be hard to predict.
True, but, as someone who broke the case nationally, the Duke lacrosse case, I think the benefit of the doubt needs to be looked at as well. You had those kids falsely accused, Me Too movement or not. So, and you work the Carolinas, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm familiar with the case, yeah.
Yeah, it's, that's another issue that, I don't know what more you can do, Rachel. And I mean, you're reporting on this fairly accurately. On one hand, these accusations have come out. They say, okay, you can come to the Senate. Judge Kavanaugh says he's willing to do that. If she doesn't, there could be some fallout with her credibility.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. And that would be, in some respects, unfortunate to other women who do need to be able to speak out. If she's not able to come for whatever reason on Monday, it's a lot of pressure. I can't really. I think it's easy for people, though, to say, "Oh, she should do this or she should do that," and not ever having been in this kind of situation.
Sure.
I don't know what kind of emotional state she's in. I just don't know. And so all I can do is sit there and watch it play out and tell you the facts as I see them and what's happening right now. But at this point, if she doesn't come on Monday, all indications are that Republicans are going to move forward and that they will probably vote Kavanaugh out of committee. Then anything could happen. I mean, maybe before it goes to a full Senate vote, she shows up. Anything's possible. I don't know then if Republicans would welcome her. It's just also, at this point, up in the air.
And we're glad you're up in the air with it.
That's all we can do, Kevin. We just watch and see what happens.
Rachel, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Rachel Sutherland joining us here. And before we get to people, I don't know, going after something that most of us consider sacred, and that's puppets and such, let me just say this. And first of all, our thoughts and prayers to everyone in the Carolinas. Our great friend, Governor Roy Cooper, doing his very best. The president will be visiting that area. And you have just major thoroughfares underwater. Can you imagine that? Remember when we were worried about the Boise River being flooded? Nothing compared to what they're going through in the Carolinas east of the Great River. But, if you even listen to Rachel's reporting, and we love Rachel, the media narrative here is that the men on the committee hearing, the Republicans, are in trouble because they're men. Now, I'm not an employment attorney. I'm not an HR person. But there is something to be said that you shouldn't be discriminated against based on sex, gender, religion, race, that sort of thing. But that's what the media narrative is doing. You have this young lady who's made these allegations, these revelations, and now, and it's just like a situation at work. I always loved this. Whenever I was accused of something, okay, bring him in. Bring him in and let me confront my accuser. And what is lost in this situation, and again, why this program is so important, because no one else will give you this. Everybody else is going to go along with the media narrative, except for our great friends Sean and Lars and Glenn on this station. Because if you come out and say, well, what if she's lying? Well, you're destroying her credibility. And if you notice, when I mentioned that to Rachel Sutherland, Reed Seligman, Colin Finnerty, David Evans, the young boys that were falsely accused of rape, will never get their lives back. You can watch the 30 for 30, talking about that. They were destroyed because they were men of privilege, I suppose. They can never get their good names back. Right? They've written books on it. I covered it from the very beginning. So what's to say that somebody can't make something up about you or your son or your grandson? Because you can't disprove the negative. It's already there. And to me, in my opinion, that's what this looks like. Somebody could come back and haul you in for, 40, 50, 20 years ago for what you allegedly did. This is a man who's a father. This is a man who has daughters, who's beloved in his community. This is why people do not want to serve their government, because of the nastiness of the progressive liberals that have lost, and they don't want to lose honestly and fairly and squarely. their girl Hillary, by the way, not a women's right activist at all when it comes to the assaults that her husband committed against women. Exactly. Right? Exactly. So where is the fairness there? That is one thing, number one. Number two, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, this whole situation involving the Muppets, Ernie and Bert. You know, people make jokes about Batman and Robin. People make jokes about Bert and Ernie. And I'm more of an Oscar the Grouch kind of guy. I love Bert and Ernie. Bert and Ernie teach us all that it doesn't matter what we look like. Some of us, our love language is, being acknowledged, affirmation. Mine is loyalty. And the friendship there that these two have for one another. Now you have a writer saying they're more than friends. Ha, 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 ha. Again, the progressive left, where nothing is sacred, where Iron Man will become Iron Woman. He will go from being a white male to a black female. Where we've redefined in the comic books heroes because we want to make them transgender or gay or something of this nature. And you think to yourself at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, is nothing sacred? And we first brought you the story yesterday. So we're going to make Sesame Street socially, we're going to focus it as a social justice warrior program where, you have these two Muppets, and they're Muppets! My goodness gracious. Can the indoctrination stop? And if you want to destroy public broadcasting, if you want to destroy PBS, go ahead and do it. But the real writers at Sesame Street say, no, they're not. Look, at a young age, you're trying to learn your ABCs, right?
Doing exercises, Bert.
Oh, you're doing exercises?
Why don't you join us?
No, thank you. No. I'm waiting for my favorite radio program, Pigeons in the News.
Well, Bert, why don't you do this exercise until it starts?
No, thanks. I think I'll just watch you.
2, and ready, stop. 1, 2, very good.
And there we have it. They're teaching us about exercise and listening to the radio, and that's a good thing. Social justice issues, sexuality. You're in school, sex ed starts well into your high school years, not at the elementary school level. But based on the comments of one person that at one time was associated with the program. In the old days when you'd have two people going out, they were friends, they were bachelors, they were bachelorettes. Now people ask if you're a couple. Really? Can't we just have these beloved characters stay the way they are? And sometimes, you're at a religious place, you're at... I don't know. I don't go to a lot of places. It's usually church in here. And you have people say, oh, those people that want to go back to the good old days. I think the good old days were pretty good. And I think when you can trust someone to educate your kids and to make it fun, you should do so without having them to inject anything else. So at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, again, the comments of a writer that just wanted to make headlines. The people behind Sesame Street say they're Muppets. But is there anything that the left will not do to disrupt and destroy, whether it's Bert and Ernie, whether it's Judge Kavanaugh, whether it's Kevin Miller, whether it's your family? That's where we are today. I'd love to hear from you next. Phone numbers, here they are. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Sam in Caldwell. Sam, good morning.
Hey, how you doing? Good. Hey, I have a mentally retarded daughter, and the three biggest traits she has is she's stubborn, she's selfish, and she's lazy. Now, the difference between most people and my retarded daughter is one of degree. She has a condition which does not allow her to be sophisticated enough to hide those three traits, where the rest of us are stubborn, lazy, and selfish, and we try to disguise it. Now, this is where religion comes into play, because true religion tries to point that fact out to you, wake you up, and tell you to get your act together, and you're actually going to have to put some effort into being a decent person. Unfortunately, a lot of people are too stubborn, lazy, and selfish to bother with it. Now, there's two ways to see the world. You can see the world as a harmony of interests. Well, there's more than two ways, but these two contrast with each other. There's a harmony of interests. You can see the world as a harmony of interests, which gets into capitalism. Or we can see the world as a conflict of interest, which gets into a zero-sum game, where the only way you can win is if you've beaten everybody else. It's like Monopoly. The only way you can win is when you put everybody else out of business. That's a zero-sum game. To see the world that way is idiotic. It destroys ingenuity, creativity. You can't come up with anything new because you're too busy being a victim, because the guy next door who's creative, and as a result of his creativity and his activity, he has something, and as a result of you being stubborn, lazy, and selfish, you have nothing. And so this whole envy thing comes into play, and the only thing you can do is destroy the person who's actually doing something. That's where all of this comes from. Sesame Street is too much connected to family. Brett Kavanaugh is too much connected to creativity, family, traditional values, religion. And so the stubborn, lazy, selfish majority, and honestly it is the majority, who they've rejected God, and therefore they've rejected the whole idea of sin and everything else. And it's a zero-sum game. There is no possibility for creativity. Well, that puts you in the position of a dead fish. And they're jealous of anybody that's prettier than they are. They're jealous of anybody that has more money than they have. They're jealous of anybody that is more successful than they are, because their whole worldview is a dead fish. So see what you think about that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Jim in Middleton, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, Jim.
Good morning, Ken. That's a tough act to follow. That guy's about spot on, isn't he?
He's really good.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, I wanted to call and answer a question that you posed about how far the left will go to further their agenda. Okay? And what we're seeing today, Kevin, is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's go back in history just a little bit, and let's revisit Mao, Stalin, and Hitler and see what they did. They killed millions of people that didn't agree with them once they gained the power that they needed. Okay? Once they brainwashed the people with gifts and free this, free that, and then instilled gun control, and those that wouldn't play along, well, they conveniently got rid of them. So to answer your question, this is how far the left will go.
And we see that with Sesame Street or Judge Kavanaugh.
Exactly, and the last caller just hit it. It's spot on. Okay, the left has no creativity. Okay, no effort. These people will take the effort of others, but not put out any of their own. And I certainly believe in a safety net and helping others, but I don't believe in a hammock and enslaving others to keep these people in the hammock. And this is what many people are pushing back. They're not insensitive, Kevin.
Right.
They're not selfish people. They're hardworking and they're compassionate people, and they want to help. But they don't want to become a slave to the people who want to stay in the hammock. And this is what this fight is about.
Jim, great point. I got to run. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Thanks for this. Bye-bye.
Bye.